Hi, I'm Chris, a Microsoft 365 consultant here at Incentra. If you've been keeping up to date with our posts, we've had a couple of late night brew posts discussing tenant-to-tenant migrations. So I thought I would jump on that bandwagon and look at it from our perspective. So what actually happens in a tenant-to-tenant migration? So just to jump straight in, the first point of call is discovering what the scope of that engagement is going to be. So just to take it through a couple of the main points, we'll ask what workloads the company has. So that might be email, Exchange Online, some Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, a Dynamics platform, Power Platforms, Teams Voice, anything like that that we can capture. We will also then ask, do you have any infrastructure on premises? So if you do have Active Directory, an Exchange server, any file shares, do you utilize group policy? Do you use configuration manager? Do you have servers? Do you have databases like SQL? What's your approach to printing? And what's your network in network infrastructure look like? That gives us a really good picture of what you currently have, and then helps us inform our approach and what you want the end state to be. So equally as important, we move on to devices. So we'll ask what kind of operating systems are in your estate. Is it just Windows, or do you have Mac and Linux as well? Do you have mobile devices? Is that iOS? Is it Android? What kind of management are these devices enrolled in, if any? Are there any applications that you use on a day-to-day basis? Some of them may even require licensing, so that's a consideration we always take in. Are they personal? Are they corporate? Is there a need for both? These are really decisions that we can take around how we're going to approach that migration, what the knock on to the end user may be, and what kind of control you're going to have over those devices. Is a rebuild going to be necessary? Is it a sign in, sign out if it's a personal device? What kind of multi-factor authentication or security or information protection policies do you have in place at the moment? And then we'll know what that's going to look like in terms of the processes that we take. That moves and ties into data, so things like classification and governance. Tenant to tenant is usually a really good time to start thinking about that, especially if you're going into a fresh tenant, or even if you're going into a well-established tenant, they may already have some of these policies in place. So it's something that we want to see what you've got, what the target environment is going to be, and then kind of see what the difference between the two is to inform what kind of an experience you're going to have throughout the migration. Backup is another point of consideration. So, is there anything in place currently? Do those records need moving as well? Is there going to be a fresh backup on the other side? So, it's definitely worth taking into consideration. Then domains. So, how many domains do you have? Do they all need to move? Do you know where they're being hosted? Who is hosting them? Are they connected to any other assets, such as a website? So part of the migration process is to move the domain over if it's required, and that's usually one of the more tricky procedures we have to go through. So having this information and knowing what to expect up front, it makes the scenario a lot smoother for when we get to any kind of cut over windows. And then there's really a discussion around what the expectations for the end state for the destination tenant is going to be. So just considering things like network connectivity, are you going to have a network there ready to go in if you're moving out of a business? What's the considerations around printing? Is it going to be cloud-based? Is it still local? Is that going to work with the approach to management for the devices that we're going to take? Are there any third-party considerations or applications that need to integrate into this system? And if so, let's get some contact details for them and stuff like that. Is there any compatibility issues around the current devices that you have, or some solutions that you may have that might not be moving or want to be moved but may not meet the requirements of the destination tenant? Future support is another one as well. So whether we're offering support on an ongoing basis, whether it's your current IT supplier, whether it's moving to someone completely new, we can start to put together informed information with the idea of handing over to whoever it may be and whoever needs to run the tenant for the long term. We want to be able to provide a very detailed handover experience so that everyone gets the best outcomes possible. So it's not something we like to keep to ourselves, and I hope you'll take it from us. It's whoever will manage this environment going forwards, we want to provide the best information for, because ultimately that's the best experience for the customer as well. And then any considerations around infrastructure, be that in Azure or be that physical, we need to know what the kind of aspirations are, whether you want to move to a fully cloud infrastructure, or if there's anything that has to remain on premises and has to move, or if there's migration paths to move away from an on-premises infrastructure into something like Azure, like a platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. So that's going to be some of the first questions that we ask around a tenant-to-tenant migration, to get an idea of what the scope is going to be, so we can make informed decisions and run workshops based on the input that we've been given here. So I'm going to do more of this in this series, and this is just the first installment. So I'll see you again soon around some other considerations. Thank you.